Good evening, everyone. Welcome to tonight's live stream. My name is David Matney with the Living in Omaha channel, and welcome to tonight's stream. We're going to talk all things real estate and talk a little bit about this crazy market we got going on. And then I have a poll in the chat this time around. So, uh, taking a look at that. Oh, wait a second. Got a little echo here. Hang on just a second here. All right, there we go. I think I fixed it. If you can hear me okay, I was hearing myself in an echo. If you have a screen up, it'll play that as well. So hopefully I don't have that echo going on. But if you can hear me okay in the chat, just please let me know, and we'll jump into tonight's article and take it from there. All right, let's see here. All right, tonight's article is going to be from Fast Company, and it's housing market red flare. Moody's chief economist sees home price declines spreading. So we're going to kind of talk about that tonight. We'll take a look at it for a little bit from a local level as well, but we'll go ahead and read through this article. Just weeks ago, Moody's chief economist Mark Zandi was signaling cautious optimism in a mid-May conversation with Gunnar Branson, CEO of the Association of Foreign Investors in Real Estate, AFIRE, a global network of international investors focused on the U.S. real estate. Zandi said the economy appeared resilient and that the additional housing market softening this spring looked more like yellow flares than anything more serious. Okay. That caution has since escalated. Zandi has issued a red flare. So let's take a look at that. Hey, we got Clark in the house. Hey, Clark, thanks for coming on board. All right, I appreciate it. All right, terrific. All right, excellent. And jump back into the article. On a July 13th post on X, Zandi warned that home sales, home building, and even home prices are set to slump unless mortgage rates fall materially from their current 7% range, something he believes is unlikely. And then here's the other thing, too. It's something that somebody believes. Nobody knows what the future is going to hold. Hey, we have Steve Moore in the house. All right, Steve, welcome aboard. Steve is a fellow agent, and Steve is licensed in Iowa. So if you're ever interested, Steve is my Iowa connection. So if you ever need help in Iowa, I can get you connected with Steve, or you can just reach out to Steve directly. So, Steve, thanks for stopping by. All right, terrific. All right. And anytime you have these articles like this, it's always somebody's opinion. Nobody knows what the future is going to hold. Okay. The housing downturn to date has been mostly about depressed existing home sales, Zandi told Resi Club. New home sales, housing completions, and house prices have held up well, but that's about to change. And then here's a graph of U.S. existing home sales are hovering near historic lows when adjusted for population levels. So even though our population has increased significantly, we haven't, our housing, the number of sales are depressed. We got some more folks in the house. I'm my own producer, so I don't have a producer or anything fancy like that. So I got to look at the article and look at the chat. And we have Mr. Bud Thompson in the house. All right. We got a big contingent of Nebraska Realty folks in the house. So that's terrific. Hey, thanks, Bud, for stopping by. And our good old friend from Denver, or I believe it's Denver. We know MH08 is from Denver or Colorado. So welcome, MH08. So thanks for stopping, guys, everybody. And Clark is a Realtor in Atlanta, Georgia. And Clark is in his market. He is seeing price declines at the moment. And that's just with anything. You're going to see any market, it's going to vary. Okay. And even with inside of a market, you're going to have home prices vary within different price points and things like that. But from what I've heard from Clark, he is seeing price declines in his market. Okay. Denver, Colorado, not Denver, Iowa, the Mile Wide City. All right. All right. That's great. All right. All right. We'll jump back into the article. Okay. And all right. We have Croy West in the house. Thank you, sir. Good to see you in the chat. All right. And Clark confirms that, yes, we're seeing softening in Atlanta. So, yeah. About how many homes, Clark, do you have on the market in Atlanta? How many what is, in terms of the number of homes for sale, which is kind of amazing to me. Some of these big markets, will have two or 3,000, 2,000 homes, on the active inventory in the Omaha market. It's always amazing to see some of these other markets, how many more homes they have just because they're a bigger city. All right. Terrific. And MOH08 says having something of a condo glut here in Denver these days. Yeah, that's okay. Do you know what that's causing that by any chance? MH08. I gotta practice that before the stream saying that because uh doesn't roll off the tongue very well. But I know that in Florida they have a lot of folks out there with condos. There's some issues with special assessments down there and that sort of thing. I think they're overbuilt. Okay, fair enough. Okay, terrific. All right. All right, we'll jump back into the article here. Okay, existing home sales have been stuck at historic lows since the pandemic housing boom ended in mid 2022. Between early 2020 and 2022, soaring home prices and then soaring rate hikes rapidly deteriorated U.S. housing affordability. And that is no joke. And that's obviously depressing sales. Since then, the housing sector has been in a slump with continued job losses, slashed commissions for mortgage brokers and agents as transaction volumes receded. And I think what they mean by that statement is not necessarily the commission rate itself. It's just that when you have fewer sales, agents obviously make less money. Mortgage brokers make less money because the pie is getting smaller. Okay. But now the housing market could be headed for even more weakness. One of the clearest tells, according to Zandi, is that builders are now postponing land deliveries, a move that typically precedes a drop in construction activity and could mean fewer starts and completions in the quarters ahead. And that's just the thing, too. Builders are smart. When they look out on the horizon, if they don't see the demand there, guess what they're going to do? They're going to dial back. They don't want to be stuck with a bunch of vacant homes that are completed. Otherwise, that could really, so they're going to be smart about it and they're going to move with the market. Okay. Let's see what MOH says. He says they're near downtown, yet downtown vacancy rate is near 40%. Okay. And Clark says in our, uh, that might be their, is it like the Fulton County? Is that Atlanta? I don't know if the FMLS, we are about 29,000 homes for sale currently. Wow. Yeah, that's just amazing to me because even during the Great Recession back in 2008, in the Omaha market, we have 2,000 homes on the market currently, just thereabouts. But it's going back to 2008, back then we had 6,000 homes on the market, and that seemed like a ton. But again, it's all relative size of the city. Okay, the first multiple listings system. Okay. Clark, help me out here. How big is Atlanta in terms of population? The Atlanta metro area. How big is Atlanta? Just okay. And then back in the office isn't really a thing in Denver. Okay, gotcha. Okay, so there you got a lot of commercial vacancies. Okay, all right. And we'll go back to the article here. I'm going to guess MOH08 says I'm going to guess in Atlanta is around 4 million. Okay. I guess we could Google it, or, I know the Omaha metro area just surpassed 1 million. Okay. Clark says, wow, 6 million something folks. Whoa, that's a lot of folks. So yeah, that's 6 Omaha metros. That's a big town. Yeah. Clark, just curious, do you work, um, do you limit yourself to how big of an area do you work in terms of, with that big of a service area? Do you like one county, or how much of that do you work, if you don't mind me asking? Been about 40 years since I've been there. Okay. All right. And if you need an agent in Atlanta, reach out to Clark. And Clark does a live stream on Sunday evening. So he's always kind enough to stop by my stream, and I like to stop by his stream. He always has great information and stuff. All right. Um, we'll go back to the article here. It's not surprising that home builders are pulling back, given that unsold inventory just hit another 15-year high. And that's just the thing. Builders don't like to have unsold inventory. So they're going to um, move that inventory, because a vacant house for a builder is not good. Yeah. Croy West says the same thing. 6 million. Wow. Yeah. No kidding. Yeah. All right. And then here's the number of unsold completed homes for sale. And you can see, this is nationwide. Uh, Look at back in 2007. Okay. Highest level of completed unsold homes since 119,000 since July of 2009. Okay. Yeah. So they're out there. Okay. Clark says, I love my county, of course, but I work all the different counties, but no more than 1 hour and a half. Okay, so kind of a half west, east, north, and south of me. Okay, gotcha. Now, with that kind of 6 million people, how far away? Because this is commute wise. How far is that in terms of commute? How many miles is that, Clark? If you don't mind me. Yeah. Clark says, "We are full here, no more." Okay, I get folks that say that too on my comment section. They'll say like, "Hey, we don't want any more folks moving here," but uh, that's not what the Chamber of Commerce says, because they want that economic activity. But we can see unsold. Now, here's the thing too. You know, um, with unsold inventory, if you're a buyer, that's an opportunity. Okay. And we've been using that excuse for 30 years, and it doesn't work. Okay. All right. According to analysis of the US Census Bureau data by Resi Club, the number of unsold completed homes hit 119,000 in May in 2025. That's the highest it has been since July of 2009, when it hit 126,000. Okay. But again, we have a lot more population now compared to then. More home price declines are likely, especially in the South and West. Zandi told Resi Club that he expects national house prices to fall by a mid single digit percentage from peak to trough over the next 18 to 24 months, assuming mortgage rates remain at 7%. And again, they're always going to give them some sort of an out, assuming something. And nobody knows what the market's going to do. Nobody's going to know what the bond market's going to do, that sort of thing. Okay. If you're buying a home in this kind of an environment, I would say this, and that is, number one, you got to make sure you have more than enough in terms of reserves in your savings account. If you're just squeezing in order to purchase a home and you don't have money saved back for a rainy day, you can get burned in any market because it's something could go sideways and you have to sell without, being in the property very long, then you're going to take a beating on that. So, um, and let's see. Uh, Prices will be weakest in the South and West, and Clark confirms that because he's in Atlanta and that's the South. And then in the West, where affordability is lowest, and there has been more construction. Okay. He said these regions, many which saw home prices stretch far beyond local income levels during the pandemic, are now seeing softening demand and rising inventory, which again, that's an opportunity if you're a buyer. Unlike the Sun Belt, many Northeast and Midwest markets experienced less pandemic era migration and limited new construction. And that's not the case with Omaha. We've had plenty of new construction in our market. With tighter inventory and fewer builder driven price adjustments, home prices in these markets have remained more stable heading into the spring of 2025. Okay. And MH08 says, I know exactly what the stock market is going to do. Okay. Maybe we ought to have a channel there. Okay. And then Clark says, but it is typically about 60 to 80 miles for driving one way. Wow. Okay. All right. You must have good, uh, some decent roads in order to get that far in an hour. That's pretty good. That's awesome. Okay. Good interstate system there. Okay. Thanks, Clark. And this is active housing inventory for sale compared to pre-pandemic levels. Metro shift between June of 2019 and June of 2025. Okay. And so you have up northeast here, it's, a tighter market. And then you can see down in Florida and Texas, there's more inventory as far as that goes. So, builders in metro areas like Austin, Phoenix, Tampa, Florida have leaned on incentives like mortgage rate buydowns to keep home prices elevated and maintain sales. What they mean by a buy down is where the builder, what they will do is they'll buy down the interest rate. So let's say the interest rate is 7%. What they'll do is they'll say, hey, the first year, they might do like a 2-1 buy down, where like the first year, it'll be 5%. The second year, it'll be 6%. And then years 3 through 30, it'll be the normal 7%. So sometimes builders do that in order to incentivize folks because people will think that, okay, hey, I'll get in at a lower rate and maybe refinance. But don't count on that because you don't know. There's been people that did that 2 years ago, and guess what? Hey, that thing is still up there at 7%. So don't, uh, be happy with whatever rate you have because nothing says that it's going to stay that way. Okay. Or that it's going to go down. Okay. Um, Simply put, Zandi thinks the housing downturn is broadening. So far, the housing downturn since mid 2022 has mostly hit one side of the market, existing home sales, which remain at historically low levels due to the lock in and affordability barriers. And that's simply true because people don't want to go from a 3% interest rate up to a 7% interest rate. Okay. But here's the thing too. Guess what? There's always going to be a market out there because there's always somebody getting married. There's always folks having babies and getting divorced and passing away. And anytime there's a life event that creates a real estate transaction. So there's always going to be a market out there. But, for the folks that want to, that would like to move, then those folks are going to be sidelined. Or if you have for like first time home buyers, where rates are so high and prices are so high, they're just shut out of the market. They are sidelined. Or what's happening is you're seeing the average age of the home buyer is getting much, much, much older. Okay. Um, okay. And let's see. I used to have pickups on S. Stewart back in the day. Okay, I don't know. Okay. And then let's see. All right. Clark says hi to everybody in the chat. All right. All right. So anyway, now I wanted to bring up another chart here. Okay. And again, this is that's one person's opinion. Nobody knows what the future is going to hold. Let's look at the this. I want to bring up this to the I don't know if you can see this chart. This is U.S. housing prices from 1950 to 2024. Okay. And this is the national. You can look back in 90 and 91. We had 2 years of price declines. And then we had during the Great Recession, we had house prices declines during those years. Okay. But look what happened. Guess what? 2012, they bounced back. 2013, 14, 15. So even if prices go down, okay, let's say you're the worst buyer on the planet and you timed it horribly and you bought a home in, you know, 2006. Well, guess what? As long as you have a time frame of, enough years, it'll come back. Eventually it'll make its way back. So you'll be okay. Now, what we had during the pandemic, where you have 10% and 19% um, price appreciation, that is completely unhealthy. That, um, because of interest rates, they were, don't get me wrong, I like a low interest rate, but for every give me, there's a gotcha. And sure enough, we're paying the price for that because um, those rates, when they were 2% or 3%, that's going to skyrocket those prices. So they probably, I mean, everybody can be an armchair Federal Reserve person after the fact, but they probably should have raised rates sooner, looking in the past there. So, um, but again, everything's. Remember when they told us inflation was transitory? Remember that? Yeah, that didn't work. That wasn't quite the case. Yeah. Um, MOH says 2021 was insane. It was. Yep. And then Clark said the same thing. 2021 was crazy. Yeah. Everybody and their cousin was. Yeah. Um, you like that one? Okay, cool. But now here's the thing too. Um, we had some significant events. 1950s, 50. In the early 1950s, we had the Korean War. What did home prices do? They went up. But we had the baby boom back then. Um, that all those veterans coming back from World War II. You had really a healthy market in the 50s. In the 60s, you had Vietnam. There some of those years were pretty lean. 64, you had presidential assassinations in 63. But guess what? Home prices, people have to live somewhere. Okay. In the 70s, you had you know, Watergate, you had the oil embargo and was it 73 oil embargo? Okay. And even then prices were appreciating. We had a 10% in 1974. Okay. You had, you know, getting out of Vietnam and in the look at 78 and 79. Okay. And we had an early problem back then. We had inflation back in the 1970s. And then even look at 1982, those were the years. If you look back in 1982, um, you had a big recession during the first Reagan administration. And even when interest rates in 1982, we still had home prices going up. Okay. I'll just show that in a, let's look at the, let's see, we'll go back. Okay. Let me share this with you here. Share this tab. Okay. I'll bring this up. Okay. This is the 30-year fixed rate mortgage. This is going back all the way back to, look at 1982. Look at those interest rates. That was 17%. Well, what did that do to sales back then? But could you imagine having now granted, home prices were, $23,000 back then, but look at that. Imagine that payment, you know, um, at 18%. Okay. Back in the early 1980s. But guess what? Home prices still went up. Okay. So even during the 1980s, but you know what's kind of interesting about that is in the 1980s, guess what? All of those babies that were born in the 50s, in the early 1980s, those were, the result of the baby boom. Um, those baby boom children were at peak buying age in their early 30s in the 1980s. So there's a demographic. Um, my dad was in that World War II generation. My dad was born in 1922. And so, um, I have six sisters. I don't know if anybody knows that or not, but I have six older sisters. And my older sisters at the time in the 1980s were all getting married, well, in the 70s and early 80s, were all getting married and buying homes and that sort of thing because they were in that age, they were out there buying homes. So that's why, you know, it's all about supply and demand. You have high demand, even at high interest rates, demand was still there. Okay, so um, now you had 1990 and 1991. That was the invasion of Iraq. But sometimes necessarily a foreign event doesn't necessarily affect the U.S. housing market. You know, it can have an effect. That was the savings and loan crisis back then in the 1990s and 91. So, but guess what? I bought my very first rental property in 91. So I didn't even care. I could care less about world events. I just said, hey, this is what uh, this is what the house is worth. This is not what I'm paying for the house. This is what my payment is. And this is what my rental income was. So that very first property was at 13% interest rate. So, but it was still able to cash flow. So I bought it. Now today I would never buy that house, but I mean, at the time, um, let's see. Let's see. Late 70s looks a bit crazy as well. Yeah, the late 70s remember we had the gas cry, we had gas lines where, uh gasoline was $1.50 a gallon, and gas took off. And then Clark says inflation. Yep. Denver was busting in the late 80s. Okay. Also, the income was rising a bit while the economy was raising. True. Yeah, that exactly. And Bud said, yeah, Bud, I bought it 14% in 1981, but it was a balloon similar to a buy down. Luckily, my company transferred me, and I picked up the relocation costs. Exactly. So, um, okay. MHOA was a taxi driver back then, so he remembers that as well. But But even during the, gasoline crisis, look what happened. Now that's inflation. Now inflation, the buying power of the dollar goes down. So sometimes it looks like prices are going up. It's just that the dollars are worth less. You print money, and the value of that money loses value. So yeah, Clark is right about the inflation. Yep. Um, and then you had 90s, um, 2001. Of course, we had September 11th. Then we had 2003. We had the invasion of Iraq, things like that. So there's always negative news out there. Um, some of this, I mean, uh, some of the 2007, in the early Bush years, I remember there was a push for home ownership, which is a great thing. You want folks to be able to buy a home, but there's sometimes where it's like if folks truly can't afford it, then they shouldn't buy. And then they got really um, easy with the money, where if you fogged a mirror, you could buy a home. Well, guess what? Um, Getting into a home and staying in a home are two different things. So they gave a, they made money too easy, and uh, people got into, and some of it, folks weren't, it's not completely everybody's fault. They didn't understand what they were getting into, and and then we had the great financial crisis after that, and that's when prices went down. Okay. But you know what? There was opportunity there. If you were a buyer in those years, like in the Omaha market, the median closed sales price in those years, you could buy a brand new home for $130,000. Those folks are sitting really good right now. So um, they should have never given me a mortgage, but I hung in there. Yeah, no, you're not alone. There's a lot of folks that good for you for sticking it out, but um, and people lose their jobs. I mean, you got to remember we had a lot of job losses back then. So if you lose your job and you just barely got into a home, well, then you're going to be, you're going to be hurting. And then what happened after that came right back. Exactly, Clark. Glad you made it through. Yeah. Yeah. So, um, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should, you know, but, 2012, we've been on a run. And then, even during the pandemic, when that pandemic first hit, there was a lot of fear in the market. But guess what? Buyers were out there and rates went extremely low. And what does that do? Makes the lower rates are that makes it more affordable. And what do people do? They're going to go out there. I don't blame them. They can go out there and buy a home at that point. But even when rates went up, okay, we was at 10 in 2020, we was at 10.6%. 2021, we had a 19% appreciation. And this is the overall market. And then in 2022, even when rates went up, look at that. We still had a price appreciation. And all this time, there have been folks that talking about, okay, hey, the market's going to crash. The market's going to crash. But so far, it hasn't. Now, will the market eventually correct? Yes, because that's what markets do. That's a normal market. But, um, you know, ultimately, it depends on your own personal situation. So, um, yeah, my income dropped 40% when the market crashed in 2009. We got into some trouble. Yeah, and that's where you got to have that emergency fund, and you almost got to kind of stress test yourself a little bit to say, hey, what happens if I lose my job? So I had rental properties at the time, and I always just thought to myself, okay, if half of these rentals are vacant and not making any money, what happens? Now, some of them, sometimes rentals are occupied and they don't make any money because the tenant ain't paying rent. But uh, you got to kind of plan for that. So it doesn't always work out the way you would like it to work out. So no, that's yeah, that makes it rough when but here's the thing though, that, they make adjustments and changes and that sort of thing. And and they implemented some changes from the great financial, because it used, you know, during that time, FHA loans were kind of out of style. You didn't do an FHA loan because they were doing 100% financing. You'd get an 80-20, or you'd get a 80-15-5 or something like that, and you'd get 100% financing. And they changed things up, thankfully, because um, folks were getting into a home where they couldn't afford it. Um, Want to get a domestic bank rep, tell the one in it, you don't know when you'll make the next house payment. Okay. All right. Um, but yeah, that's just, that's, what will the overall market do? No, nobody knows. But I mean, at the end of the day, if it's the right time for you, um, then I would say, hey, go ahead and make your move. And you know what? Hey, if it does correct a little bit, that's an opportunity for buyers. So when we were back in 2020 and 2021, and you had 15 offers on a property, that was not, hey, rates were low, but hey, that wasn't a great thing, because guess what? You had folks that couldn't do a home inspection and things like that. So there's a lot of folks that wanted to purchase a home, and they fell in love with a home, but they didn't get the home they wanted. They had to settle for something else, maybe after making 5 or 6 offers. So even when rates were really, really low, um, and things, it was affordable. Because of interest rates, it wasn't a good thing. So um, talk about that a little bit. And then I also wanted to bring up, I have some little notes down here. Okay. Um, Wanted to kind of talk a little bit about a pre-inspection. Okay. Um, and I've brought this up in other live streams and that sort of thing, but what is a pre-listing inspection? If you're putting your home on the market, one of the things you can do is you can do a pre-inspection. Okay. Now, in this type of a market, when inventory is increasing and you're in competition with more and more sellers as a seller, one of the things you can do is you can do a pre-listing inspection. Now, um, what is it? It's going to cost you a couple $100, but what's nice about that, it's going to decrease your liability. Okay. And then you're also going to be able, because if the buyer does a home inspection, they're going to find something wrong and they're going to ask you to fix it. But if you do a pre-listing inspection, what the nice thing about that, if you're a seller, is that you can fix those items on your own time. You're not going to be rushed while it's under contract. Okay. So if you do that pre-inspection, and then here's the other thing too. If you're a seller and you do that pre-inspection, and of course, you have to disclose it to folks, okay, that and make it available, okay, and buyers can look at that pre-inspection. That way, it's going to put that buyer at ease a little bit, and then it's going to decrease your liability, because then the buyer can't say, "Well, you didn't tell me about the roof." You can say, "Well, I had it inspected by a reputable inspector, and that's what the inspector found." So you're going to decrease your liability a little bit, okay. Now, the other thing is, if you're a seller, the other good thing about having a pre-inspection done is, let's say you do that pre-inspection and an offer comes in and they still want to do an inspection. Well, then that's kind of a little bit of a heads up that it's like, hey, maybe they're going to do a radon test, or maybe they're going to do a sewer scope inspection. So that just kind of gives you a little bit of an alert that, hey, they might be doing some other inspection besides just a whole house inspection. Because um, if you're a buyer, okay, that's from the seller side. If you're a buyer and a pre-inspection has been done, should you do your own inspection? Okay. Um, well, and a couple of things. Okay. Remember, the seller paid for that inspection. Okay. Now, sometimes the inspection can say things, but they can say it in such a way that it kind of softens it. Does that make sense? So it's always good to have. And the other thing too is, an inspection is a snapshot in time. So the house a month ago is a different home than it is today. Okay, so that inspection is a snapshot in time. Now, the other thing too is if you're a buyer and you know you if you elect not to do an inspection, then it's like, hey, you're really locking yourself into that contract. Okay, if you still give yourself the option to do an inspection, if you're a buyer, you get to choose your own inspector, and you can compare that inspection to the one that was done previously. And guess what? Two inspectors can find two entirely different um, inspections on the same house. I've seen that happen many a times. And then the other thing too is when you do that home inspection, okay, when you have a home inspection contingency as a buyer, you have the opportunity to say, you know what? If you change your mind or if you get cold feet, if you have that ability during that inspect, because you have that window of time to do any and all inspections, and you can say, hey, the inspection was unacceptable. Well, you don't have to tell them why it was unacceptable. You can just say, well, the inspection was unacceptable. And then you can get out of the contract. But if you are a buyer and you accept that pre-inspection and then you opt not to do a home inspection on your own, then you've locked it's going to be much harder to get out of that contract. I don't know if that makes sense for folks, but that's a little bit about that. So, and then the other thing too is if you're a buyer and you wanted to do, let's say, a sewer scope inspection, or let's say a radon test, if you opt to do no inspections, then you're not doing a sewer scope and you're not doing a radon test. So keep that in mind. Okay. Any question? I don't know if anybody has any questions about that pre-inspection. And then what I thought I would do too is just for fun, look at the MLS here. And then let me share it with you. Okay, this is the multiple listing service. And what the MLS is where agents, when a home is advertised on the MLS, um, you can agents can search different parameters and things like that. So that means Nebraska Realty, um, shares, puts it on the MLS, and other companies can advertise their listings on the MLS as well. Now, what they can't do is you can't advertise the cooperating commission on the MLS. So it used to be you can go online and see, let's say I wanted to show a home on 1234 Main Street, it would say what the commission was going to be for that particular property. That all went away with the National Association of Realtors lawsuit. So that part of it went away. But what I thought I would do for just fun is I'm looking at, I don't know if how well you can see my screen here. Maybe that's a little better. Nah, man, maybe not really. Okay. We're looking for active listings in Douglas and Sarpy County, for sale, active listings. And then in the public remarks, I put contains assumption or assumable. Okay. And I did a word search. Okay. So believe it or not, there were 19 properties that pulled up in Douglas and Sarpy County with assumable mortgages. What that means is when let's say somebody has a 3.5% assumable loan, then instead of getting your own loan, you would have to qualify for that loan and you could assume their mortgage. Okay. So let's see, out of these 19 homes, let's kind of take a look at them here real quick. Okay. And this is Douglas, and this is the city here, like Omaha, Papillion, Bellevue, Bennington, and all different price points. I didn't put a price point on it, but we'll go ahead and click it here and then go client detail. And this is 8814 Drexel Circle. And it says well, you can't even, it's hard for you guys to read it, but this is a VA loan assumption. Okay. And look at that, 2.25% VA loan assumption. Okay. So that probably means they bought it, around that pandemic time. Okay. So let's say their listing price is 319, but let's say their loan amount is 219. Okay. So in order to assume this loan, you would have to have $100,000 cash, and then you can, as long as you qualify for that loan, then you would have a 2.25% VA assumable loan. Now, if you're an investor, VA means Veterans Administration, so it can't be an investment property. You can't do an assumable loan and then go out and rent it out. In order to qualify, it has to be owner occupant. But that would be a case. Now, I don't know what this was listed by Better Homes and Gardens, but we'll just take a look at the photos here. Nice looking photo there. Big tree in the front yard. For my clients that know me, I'm not a big fan. I mean, hey, don't throw shade at me, but I'm not a big fan of trees in the front yard because I just think a sewer line, roots in the sewer line. So this was built. What year was this thing built? This was built in 1983. So yeah, yeah, that is 100% right. That big tree is right over that sewer line. That's what I see when I see a tree. That's what I see. This is a good question. Can you rent a sewer cam? I don't know if you can. Okay, but I know that's a very inexpensive inspection. And then the other thing too, I want the expertise of that technician who's goes through hundreds and hundreds of sewer lines. I want that guy or gal or whoever it is to talk to me about it and um, be able to ask questions or something. So because here's the thing too. What I see and what the technician's going to see are two different things. So I'm going to lean on that expertise of that. So I'm never going to rent a sewer cam. And you can talk to my wife. I'm not going to do any handiwork anyway. You know what I mean? So I'll pay for it to be done, but I don't like trees in the front yard either. All right, Clark. All right. So, yeah, that's a big tree, hardwood tree in the front yard. Yeah. A nice looking property. Oh yeah, nice. Look at that. Nice looking flooring and stuff. Vaulted ceilings and all. Look at that woodwork and everything. That's nice looking fireplace. Yeah. I mean, this is a VA assumable loan. So yeah, that's magic. Poof, there it goes. Had some virtual staging there. But that's a VA assumable loan. That if you have an agent, then you can contact your agent about that property. Again, don't like trees in the front yard. Let's see what the flipper next door cut down all the trees. Now I'm flooded with sunlight in the summer. Should sue him for higher AC costs. You can. All right. So that's one property that's assumable there. 175.25 Shirley. Let's see what that says. That is an FHA assumable loan. FHA and VA loans are both assumable. Okay. This one here, let's see what this one is. This one is pre-inspected. Okay. 3-bed, 2.5 bath, and a 4.99 assumable VA loan. Now, what that's telling me is that loan may not be as old. Okay. So if he has a really low, loan balance or a really low interest rate, that means that loan balance there's going to be more cash that you have to bring. But with something with a 5% assumable loan, then you may not need to bring as much cash. And of course, you got to contact the agent and everything. And this one was this one pre-inspected we can click here and there's the seller property condition disclosure statement. And I'll share this tab instead. And then when you look at the seller property condition disclosure statement, how long has the seller owned the property? Okay, this way it's 2.75 years. Okay, so they haven't been in it very long. And then is the seller currently occupying the property? Yes. And you always want to pay attention on this seller property condition disclosure statement. You always want to look at this one here. Has there ever been any damage to the real property because of the following? Hail, wind, fire, flood, that sort of thing. If they marked yes, then what you want to do when you're looking at this disclosure is look at the comments section. Okay, so, all right, we'll jump back here. Okay. And then here's another assumable. Let's see. Listing price. Another one, nice looking property. I picked out one earlier. This one here was this one I picked out earlier. When I scrolled through 4614 Clearwater Drive. Okay. This one's listed with Nebraska Realty. Actually, Jen Marshall with Nebraska Realty. Listing price of $365. Okay. And this is a VA assumable loan. And again, you don't need to be a veteran to be to assume a VA loan. And I actually did some little bit of digging on this one. So the listing price is $365. Okay, $365. And the loan amount is $337. And the interest rate is 5.75. So you don't need to bring as much to closing on this one, but you still need to bring 28,000, which is a healthy amount of money. If you don't have that, unfortunately, you can't do like a second, some sort of second mortgage for that to wiggle that. We'll never say never. I'm sure anything's possible, but I've just never heard of anybody doing that. But let's see. Bud has a comment here. Bud says, I once bought a rental once that had a big tree beside the driveway. And yep, the sewer was ruined and the sewer line was under the driveway. $8,000 later, new sewer and new driveway. Yeah, that's painful. Yeah, that's really a great point, Bud. Thanks for bringing that up, because if that sewer line is under that driveway and they need to tear that puppy up, boy, then you're replacing the driveway. And I've had to replace the main sewer line. And when they dig up the yard, well, guess what? Then you got mud and everything like that. And it takes a while for the grass to grow back, or in my case, the weeds to grow back. But, and then you're responsible from your house to where it connects to the main sewer line in the street. So that means if they have to dig up the street, you're paying for that street to be, dug out and then repaired. So, yeah, that's really painful. Yeah, that's $8,000 for that's actually pretty. I mean, can you imagine what it is now, bud? That'd be crazy. Let's see. Troy has a question here. Troy, welcome to the Troy Beard. Okay. With a VA assumable loan, would you still need an additional VA home inspection if the pre-inspection has been done? They on an assumption, they don't send a VA appraiser back out there. So one thing with a VA loan that and I'm not a lender, you want to talk to a lender and everything like that. But on a VA loan, whenever you're getting a VA loan, they're going to make sure that the house is safe, sound, and secure. So they're going to go out and make sure that there's no peeling paint, no handrails that are missing, or tripping hazards and that sort of thing. So you don't have, it's not like a normal VA loan. Like on a VA loan, when you do VA financing, the seller pays for the cost of the termite inspection. Well, when you assume a VA loan, you don't even have, you can do a termite inspection, which is a good idea to do a termite inspection, but it's not like the seller has to pay for it. Okay. So, hey, James, I hope that answers your question there, Troy. Thanks for popping in the stream. And then James Clark is in the house. Thanks, James, for stopping by. And then Corey West says, Mr. David, I'm a first timer, not familiar with the lingo. What do you mean by assumable? Okay, great question. Okay. What that means is this. When I have a loan, that would mean that you can take over my loan. You can assume my loan. That's what assumable means. Okay. Instead of like Corey West, if you were buying this property, this 4615, and let's say it didn't have an assumable loan, you would have to go out and get your own financing for it. Go to the bank, and you would have to pay a 7%, just ballpark figure, 7% interest rate at the current rate. But when you assume a loan, then let's say I got a loan a couple years ago and that loan is at 5%. Well, now instead of paying 7%, you're getting my loan at 5%. So it's a great opportunity. Okay. That's what that means. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit. I actually did a video on assumable loans. You can go back and watch that video. Hopefully I explained it okay, but it's a great opportunity. And a lot of folks, you're not alone, Corey West. And that's why I talk about this, is because a lot of people are not aware that loans are assumable. So it's a great opportunity. I've done 2 VA assumable loans for buyers this year. One was from somebody coming from California, and another one is from somebody from New York. And they're just as happy, tickled pink about the opportunity that they have with an assumable loan, and the amount of savings that and there's opportunity out there. There's in any market. Okay. There's always opportunity out there. So you just got to be looking for it. Okay. But hopefully, Corey West, that answers your question there. Okay. And again, if you ever want to reach out and give me a call with a question, there's my number on the screen. You're going to be talking to me. So that's my number. So if you ever have another question, if you want to reach out to me directly, feel free to do so, and we can chat about this or go into more detail if that wasn't, if you're still confused about something. So by all means, feel free to give me a holler. Let's see. $8,000, not that bad. Mine was 13,000. Had to dig up the street. Yeah. Mine was 20 grand. And mine had to dig up the street and the sidewalk and the house. I got some good B-roll for it though, but I don't think my wife was that excited about it. It's like, hey, I kind of thought, well, I got great B-roll, but that's pretty expensive B-roll for sewer scope, but and all the rock fill as well. Yep. Okay. Yes, thank you. I was not aware. I'll check your video. Yeah. Oh, terrific. Yep. I don't know what it's out there, but yeah. I'll be in Omaha 8/16, but probably not long enough to say hi. Well, welcome to Omaha, MH08. And then RMAC 15. I've never seen you in the chat, but howdy to you, sir. Okay. $8,000 in 2004. So yeah, that was whoa, that was expensive back in the day. Yep. No, I'm with you on that. So okay, excellent. All right. And then we'll go check out this 64 07 Kayla Drive. That looks like a DR Horton home. Okay. And then this is a pre-inspected, assumable FHA loan at 2.75%, $5,000 closing credit with strong offer. Okay. There's another opportunity there. And then this one here, 395. And this is 3.5% assumable option. Again, you still need to qualify for that loan. Okay, this one here, is this on my list of ones that I might have did a little research on this one too here. Yeah, I did. Okay, 10419 North 150th Street. Okay, this one is 405,000. Okay, that's the current list price, and it's a 3.5%. And I know you guys can't see this on this. When I look at the screen, I'm looking at my screen over here, and it's a 3.5% assumable loan. Okay. And the loan balance, I dug up the research on that. The loan balance is $260,000. So you would need to have cash of $145,000, and then as long as you could get approved for the loan, then you can assume that 3.5% interest rate. So there's an opportunity out there, and that one's listed with Jeff Priest with Nebraska Realty. So that's another opportunity out there. Let's take a look at this one. It's a walkout. A lot of our market. Clark, question for you: do you guys have a lot of basements in Atlanta, Georgia? Is that a big thing in Atlanta, Georgia? Basements. Do you have basements in Atlanta? Nice looking kitchen. Nice photos. Some folks, the golden oak is not in style nowadays. I'm not in style anyway, so. Tile floors, nice looking place. Yeah, that's a finished basement, walkout basement. All right, got catch up on the chat here. MOH says 13,000 in 2019. RMAC is trying to figure out to stay where I'm at. Trying to figure out to stay where I'm at or move back to Omaha. Okay, terrific. All right. Well, come pay us a visit. See what you think. Okay. Where are you currently at, if you don't mind me asking? Or maybe you don't want to share in chat. I don't know. Okay, where you're vacationing? Vacationing, all right. And then going to Omaha to pick up a relative's car to take to Seattle. I work in the Seattle area, so it'd be nice to see my crew. Okay, excellent. All right. And sounds like a nice road trip. Go Seahawks. All right. I used to auto transport in the 80s, hence all my trips to Atlanta. I'll do that again, first time doing it as a favor. That's nice of you. Okay. And Clark says we have basements, but it's not as big as up north, more crawl spaces than basements. Yeah. We have basements because of tornadoes and everything, but folks still like to go outside and stand outside and watch the tornado, which when the sirens go off, it's kind of an Omaha thing. It's not advisable, but people do that. I mean, a friend of mine got really good video footage of the one in Elkhorn, and you can hear him talking in the background. He sent his kids, of course, downstairs, but then he was hanging out upstairs. I live in go Vikes. Okay. Okay, Southern California. Okay, excellent. All right. Was in Omaha until I was 22, now 34. Yeah, well, there's a lot of opportunity here in Omaha. So, and I think the cost of living is a lot better off than California, but whatever, makes you happy. I appreciate everybody with the comments and everything. Go Broncos. Everybody in Omaha is either a Broncos fan, a Vikings fan, of course, a Chiefs fan, and then the Packers and the Bears. Okay. And then there's always some renegades out there that are New England fans. No, so all right. Of course, everybody's a Husker fan, which we're only about 30. Well, we're not too far out. fall camp is starting soon, so it's hard to believe that it's already football season. So that's a lot of fun. We'll cruise through these a little bit more. So this is a VA assumable loan, or excuse me, I don't know if it's this one 4.75 VA assumable loan. So there's opportunities. This is just in Douglas and Sarpy County. So, but again, the problem is you have to have cash in order to make up that difference between purchase price and loan amount. Nice looking property. Okay. Another one. Okay. How much is this one? 2.75. That gives me kind of a clue to where, if it's 2.75, then you're going to need to bring more cash because of that price appreciation and everything. Where's that one located? We'll click on the little map here. All right. That's right next to Fontenelle Forest there. That probably guarantee you that thing has termites in it because this is all Fontenelle Forest and everything. So this is just loaded with deer and everything and real hilly and everything, really beautiful. But they'll have termites in the backyard on that puppy, which is fine. They can treat for termites, not a big deal. 4605 Sheridan. That's a nice looking big house there. That is contract pending. So subject to 24-hour first right of refusal. Okay, what that means is there's a contract on it. You can write a contract, but the first offer that was written, they have 24 hours to either remove their home sale contingency or remove their contingency, or the second buyer can purchase the home. So there's usually, but you'd have to call and check on that and see exactly what it is. But that's what that first right. It's first right to purchase. Okay, technically, but there's another one 479 pending backup on the market for backup offers only. Okay. But you just got to look. You got to look out there. This one's 565, and this one a VA assumable loan. Okay. So anyway, and then we'll go through a few more. 795, 829, 2.75 assumable loan, but probably have to come in with a big chunk of change on that. And then almost $1 million. And there's instant equity. Ask about the VA assumable loan. All right. Well, does anybody have any more questions? Oh, I got to run my little banners here saying, hey, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We're almost at that magic. I'm actually at, let me see if I can pull that up here. Hang on just a second. And share this. Oop, let me bring that to stage. Yeah, we're almost at 5,000 subscribers. So if you don't mind subscribing to the channel, that would be terrific. So we're at 4,983 subs right now. So I'm trying to get to that 5,000 mark. So if you're don't forget to subscribe to the channel. And if you have any questions about anything, even if you're not moving right away, or if you just have any questions about the Omaha market, feel free to reach out. Got a few more comments here. Appreciate everybody stopping by tonight, and it's always fun. Let's see here. For the 829, how much cash would you need on that one? I would have to go back and look on that one, Armac. I didn't research that one, but you can contact me offline and we can delve into that a little bit more. If you want to give me a call, feel free to do so, and we can research that a little bit. Okay, and then let me. Had a few more comments here, and then and yes, hit that like button too. Excellent, thanks. Go ahead and hit those like buttons. That really helps things here. And then all my parties were at UNO on Dodge at MOA. Okay. All right. Excellent. All right. All right. Well, oh, this is the married couple pod. Haven't seen you since class. Great to see a live show. Thank you. I finally, you guys are brave enough to do live streams all the time. So thanks for stopping by. It's a whole nother another skill set there. So yeah, thanks guys for stopping by. I teach principles and practices to new licensees. So they were former students of mine. So terrific. It's great to see you guys. Thank you. And then no problem. All right. And Clark says, great show tonight. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's see. Troy says, David, what is the average closing time in houses recently? That's a great question. Let's take a look at that here. Hang on just a second. Let me bring that down. And then share this tab instead. And okay. And we'll go 3 years, bar. Okay. Let me share this. Okay, this is in June median days on market. This is 4 days on the market. That's the entire market in Douglas and Sarpy County. Okay, average is 22 days on market. Okay, and in that lower, it will separate new construction from existing. Okay, and then we'll take out. This is by construction type. So this is new construction. It's 81 days on market. But again, here's the thing with that. Some of those homes that are listed as new construction are at lot stage and things like that. So don't think that that's a little deceptive there. Okay. And then here's the other thing with new construction days on market. Sometimes a builder, what they'll do is they'll get under contract, put the home on the MLS at that point while it's being constructed. That way they can advertise it, but it's actually under contract, but it's racking up days on market. So that's really not kind of a true indicator. But so hopefully that makes sense. But if we separate new from existing, the average days on market, and this is Douglas and Sarpy County, it's 11 days on market. The median is for existing is 11 days. Wait, no, the median is 4. Okay. That means half of the homes sold in 4 days or less, and then half of the homes sold 4 days or more. Okay. That's what they mean by median. Average is, but you also got to look at, okay, the number of closed sales. Okay. How many closed sales were there? Okay. So it all plays a part. Now we can also play with these numbers a little bit, and we can go line, and we can go a rolling 12 months. Okay, this is average days on market going back, and we'll go back 5 years. Okay, and then this is new construction is in green, and then the red is existing. And you can see that and we'll go out 10 years just to kind of show you. This is a rolling 12-month average. I kind of geek out on these stats, so that's, you asked a question, so I'm going to geek out on you there. But you can see on back in 10 years ago, the average days on market for existing homes was 37 days on the market for new construction is 110. And then you can look at those days and then look at the pandemic years, 2021, 2022. Look how low it got for new construction, 27 days on market. That's crazy. And then it's gone up since then. Okay. But yeah, that was crazy time in 2022. If we max this out, there's an anomaly here with that. I don't like that. Um, anyway, the geek shall inherit the earth. Okay. All right. Well, hey, any more questions, gang? I really appreciate it. It was fun. Had 12 people in the chat, so I really appreciate that. It's fun to, um, you know, chat with you guys and talk about the market and that sort of thing. Go over an article and that sort of thing. But anyway, I appreciate it, and hopefully, if you have any questions or anything, anytime, feel free to reach out. Appreciate all the comments and everything. That really makes it a lot of fun. And it's great to see some new people here in the chat. So I really appreciate it. And then again, if you have any myself to the stage, remove that. And then we'll see you guys next week. And you have a great day. Thanks again, everybody. Bye-bye.